Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the course of world history. I am your host, Mr. Samuelson, and today we are looking at women within the Ottoman Empire and their kind of varied roles based upon their level in society. So, our essential question for the day is, what was the role of women in the Ottoman Empire? We're going to start back at the beginning with a look at nomadic Turkic women. Now, prior to Turkish migration into Anatolia, this is the homeland of the Ottoman Empire, women were very important in clan life. While men were off herding and hunting, spending most of their time away from the home, away from the clan, women were in charge of managing the day-to-day business. So very active in the daily life of the Turkic clans. Now, in such society, where women are left in charge and kind of by themselves quite a bit, they tend to have a higher amount of influence on society as a whole than in the more settled Western or Far Eastern societies. Now, within the Ottoman Empire, right back at the beginning, under Osman and his immediate successors, women kind of continued this traditional role as managers, being in charge of the household, being in charge of the community, while the men were off fighting wars. Now, this was very common early on, particularly under Osman as he's expanding those borders and away more than he is back at home. With this type of society set up, women have to have a public role. Women are out in front. Women are, if not by title in charge, in actuality in charge of a lot of what is going on back at home. Now, this contrasted with what was common in most Islamic societies that the Ottoman Empire took over early on. Following the capture of Constantinople, the empire does adopt this more Islamic character, bringing in Arab traditions, Islamic traditions, those of the Umayyad Caliphate and their successors who had kind of ruled in that area. And women's public role really starts to shrink, starts to come down as Constantinople becomes this peaceful center of the empire. Men reassert their public role. But this does not mean that the woman's role in society evaporates. There's a lot of tradition, a lot of custom about women having this important role. So while they become more isolated from that public role and more kind of pulled back from public figures in business and in government, they do have more of a role in a home still. This is especially true amongst lower class women within the Islamic society, within the Ottoman society, because this Islamic image was not embraced by those who were not in power. Those who didn't have to be seen to adapt the customs and lifestyles of those that they were ruling, just continued to live life the way that they usually had. This is followed all the way through history into Turkey today. You look at the difference between a woman's role in society in Turkey versus Saudi Arabia, and it's night and day. The Turkic women maintained this role of being much more public. These women remained involved in families' economic activities, managing businesses, running businesses, being the person who engaged with customers, and were allowed and frequently did mingle with men in public. These were things that under Islamic law were forbidden or highly discouraged. Now, amongst the upper class, we see women retaining power but using it privately instead of publicly. Women did have property rights, and neither their husband nor their father could take their property or use their property without their consent. This is different than what we would see in a, Saudi Arabian, more hardcore Islamic society. Ottoman courts would vigorously protect the rights of women to have maintained property and to be in control of their property. Although most of the upper class women did seclude themselves, they did follow that Islamic practice of spending their time in the household and not being the front of business or politics. They did have greater rights than we had seen in Islamic societies before, or in fact, more rights than what was happening in most European societies, too. The Ottoman Empire was very progressive on women's rights in most instances. Yeah. All right. So the harem. The harem is a part of a Muslim household which is reserved for women. It is the women's sanctuary within an Islamic household. The most powerful women in the empire did exist and live within the sultan's harem. So these would be the women that the sultan would engage with on a regular basis. Now, this includes the sultan's mother. It can include his wives. Also includes concubines. So those women who he was not married to but had close relations with. Now, the harem was very powerful. Women within the harem had regular access to the sultans, would talk to the sultans on a regular basis. This is a level of intimacy and a level of discussion that, top advisors wouldn't always have. And many of them used this influence over the sultan to shape Ottoman policy. Now, this woman right here, Roxolana, was the wife of Suleiman the Magnificent, the greatest of all the Ottoman leaders, and is believed to have been responsible for a lot of the policies of the empire. She really did push the sultan, particularly in the area of large construction projects, to build up the city of Constantinople, to make his mark on the empire. And it was largely because of the direct advice of his wife, and the empire was better for it. Missed one. Later sultans, however, did tend to withdraw into the harem a little bit more than they perhaps should have, and live the more relaxed lifestyle, perhaps spending more time with concubines than with advisors. And the harem came to be seen as a sign of weakness. But it is very important for us to know that that is not what it was, and it was used as a sign of strength and empowerment for women for the majority of the Ottoman Empire. All right. Thank you for listening today and for being with us. I hope that you learned something, and farewell.